My hands were stained with her blood, but it wasn't a crime. Not exactly. It was a transaction. A final, desperate payment for a truth I could no longer outrun. Her name was Evelyn, and she was my wife. At least that's what the marriage certificate said. The one framed on our mantel next to a photo of us on our honeymoon. We were smiling in that photo, a perfect sun-kissed couple. But the smiles were a lie, a thin veneer over a reality so twisted it made my stomach churn. I was in our bedroom, the one we had meticulously decorated together. The walls were a soft lavender, the color she insisted would be calming. Now it felt like the color of a bruise. Evelyn was lying on the bed, her eyes wide, unseeing. A single rose, its petals a deep velvety red, lay clutched in her hand. It was the only thing in the room that wasn't ours. The only thing that wasn't a lie. I wiped my hands on my jeans, the fabric already stiff with her blood. It wasn't a crime, I told myself again. It was a trade, my sanity for her silence. But her silence was a louder scream than any I had ever heard. The last few months had been a slow-motion car crash, each day bringing a new, terrifying jolt. It started with the small things. The car keys would be on the kitchen counter, but when I came back for them, they would be on the coffee table. The book I was reading would be on the nightstand, but the next morning it would be on the living room floor. I blamed it on my own forgetfulness at first. Just getting old, I guess, I would joke to Evelyn. She would just smile that same practice smile, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Then the voicemail started. One night I came home from work to find a message on our landline. I pressed play, and a woman's voice, thick with emotion, said, "I know what you're doing. He told me everything. You're a monster." The voice was cold, accusing, and completely unfamiliar. I checked caller ID. It was from our own phone number. I played it for Evelyn. She listened, her brow furrowed in a perfect pantomime of confusion. "Must be a prank call, darling. Don't worry about it." But the pranks didn't stop. They escalated. Notes appeared in my lunchbox, scrawled in a shaky, childlike handwriting. "He's watching you. You're not alone." I showed them to Evelyn. She would sigh a long, weary sigh and say, "You're stressed, darling. You're imagining things. Maybe you should see a doctor." Her concern felt as authentic as a politician's promise. The gaslighting was a slow poison, seeping into every part of my life. I started to doubt my own memory, my own sanity. I would find an unfamiliar brand of coffee in the pantry and swear I hadn't bought it. Evelyn would just look at me, her eyes wide with feigned sympathy, and say, "Darling, we've been buying this brand for weeks. Don't you remember?" And the terrifying thing was, I didn't. I truly didn't. The world was shifting beneath my feet, a funhouse of distorted mirrors and impossible angles. I was losing my grip on reality, and Evelyn was the one holding the rope, watching me dangle. The phone calls, the notes, the misplaced objects. It was a symphony of psychological torment, each note designed to drive me further into the abyss of my own mind. I started to keep a diary, a log of every strange occurrence, every time I found something out of place, every time Evelyn's facade cracked for a brief, terrifying moment. One entry read, "Found an earring under the bed, a sapphire earring. Evelyn says it's not hers. She only wears pearls. I know it's not mine, so whose is it? Whose is it, Evelyn?" The diary became my only anchor to reality. It was a tangible record of the impossible, a desperate cry for help in a world where no one would hear me. I started to question everything. Was the marriage certificate real? Were the honeymoon photos Photoshopped? Was the house we lived in even ours? Was Evelyn even Evelyn? The breaking point came with a scent. A new, unfamiliar perfume clung to our sheets. It was sweet and heady, like a garden of forbidden flowers. I confronted Evelyn. "I smell something," I said, my voice trembling. "It's not your perfume." Her face, for the first time, lost its perfect composure. A flash of something, fear, anger, crossed her features before she smoothed them back into that practiced mask of concern. "Darling, what are you talking about? It's the new laundry detergent. Don't you like it?" "It's not laundry detergent, Evelyn," I said, the words a strained whisper. "It's perfume. Another woman's perfume. Who is she?" She began to cry then, but the tears were as cold and manufactured as everything else about her. "You're accusing me? After all we've been through? I can't believe you, Mark. This is a new low, even for you." But the tears, the feigned hurt, couldn't hide the truth that was now screaming at me. There was another woman. There had always been another woman. I started to dig. I went through Evelyn's phone when she was in the shower. Her contacts were a list of bland, innocuous names. Brenda from book club, Aunt Carol, Mom. But I found a hidden folder in her photo gallery. I entered a 6-digit passcode, I guessed, based on our anniversary date. It was the same as my birthday. Inside the folder were photos. Photos of Evelyn, but not the Evelyn I knew. She was with another man, their arms wrapped around each other, their faces alight with a genuine, uninhibited joy I had never seen on her. But it was the other photos that made my blood run cold. Photos of me sleeping, of me working at my desk, of me simply existing in the house I thought was mine. The dates on the photos were all wrong. They were from a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. A year ago, I was living in a different apartment with a different life. These photos were a forgery, a manufactured memory, designed to make me believe I had always been here. And then I saw it. A single text message, a screenshot of a conversation with a contact named My Love. The message read, "He's starting to figure it out. We need to accelerate the timeline. He's getting too close to the truth. We need to end it." The name of the sender was the same as the name in my diary. The name I had written down as the one who was gaslighting me, the one who was watching me. It was Evelyn. I confronted her that night, the phone in my hand, the evidence burning a hole in my palm. She didn't deny it. She just looked at me, her eyes now devoid of any pretense. The mask was finally gone. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm Evelyn," she said, a cruel smile playing on her lips. "I'm the woman who loves him, the man in those photos, the man you've been searching for, the man you are trying to forget." "I don't know who you're talking about," I said, the words a desperate lie. "There's no other man." "There is," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "There's always been another man. He's the one you're trying to hide from, the one you built this life to escape. This life, with me, is a carefully constructed cage, and you're the one who built it." Her words were like a physical blow, a sudden, brutal shock that knocked the air from my lungs. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the subtle clues. It was all a desperate attempt to break my mind, to make me forget the truth that was buried deep within me. I started to have flashbacks, not of Evelyn and me, but of a different life, a different woman. Her name was Clara. She was a painter with a wild mane of red hair and a laugh that sounded like music. We lived in a small apartment, the walls covered in her art. We were in love, deeply, irrevocably in love. And then I remembered the night that changed everything. The night I got drunk at a gallery opening and kissed another woman. I remembered telling Clara, my voice thick with guilt and shame. I remembered the look on her face, the way her eyes, once so full of light, went dark and hollow. And I remembered the sound of the car crash, the final, screeching sound of metal against metal, followed by a sickening silence. The flashbacks were like puzzle pieces, each one a sharp, painful fragment of a past I had desperately tried to erase. I remembered meeting Evelyn at the hospital. She was the one who pulled me from the wreckage. She was the one who told me I had suffered a traumatic brain injury, that I had lost my memory. She was the one who told me that Clara had died in the crash. She told me that she was my wife, that we had been married for 5 years, that we had a life together, a life that was now lost to my amnesia. I believed her. I had no reason not to. She had the documents, the photos, the memories. She had a perfect, seamless narrative that filled the void in my mind. But it was all a lie. The documents were forged, the photos were doctored, and the memories were a carefully constructed fiction. Evelyn wasn't my wife. She was Clara's twin sister, and Clara wasn't dead. The final piece of the puzzle snapped into place. Clara wasn't dead. She was the one who was calling me, the one who was leaving the notes. She was trying to break through the amnesia, to remind me of the life I had forgotten, the life I had betrayed. She was the one who found me, who was trying to reclaim the man I was before Evelyn got her hands on me. I confronted Evelyn again, the truth now a blinding, painful light in the darkness. Clara is alive, I said, my voice shaking with a mix of terror and triumph. She's been trying to reach me. You've been gaslighting me, manipulating me to keep me from her. Evelyn's face, a mask of cold fury, finally broke. You fool, she spat, her voice a low snarl. You have no idea what you've done. You have no idea what you lost. You betrayed her, Mark. You broke her heart and you drove her to the edge. The accident. It wasn't an accident. She was trying to kill herself because of you, because of your betrayal. Her words hit me like a physical blow, a new, more profound betrayal that overshadowed everything else. Clara hadn't died in the crash. She had survived, and she was a shell of the woman I had loved, broken by my infidelity, by my betrayal. I found you in the wreckage, Evelyn said, her voice now a chilling monotone. I saw my sister, the woman you loved, broken and bleeding, and I saw you, the man who destroyed her, and I made a decision. I decided to give you a life, but not the life you deserve. I decided to make you pay for what you did. I decided to make you live in a cage of my own design, a cage where you would slowly lose your mind, where you would never truly be free. The truth was a far more terrifying monster than the lies. Evelyn wasn't a jealous lover. She wasn't a captor. She was an avenger. She had taken me in, nursed me back to health, and then systematically, methodically, she had taken everything from me. My memory, my identity, my sanity. All in the name of revenge for a sister I had loved and betrayed. She stood over me now, her eyes filled with a cold, righteous fury. She's coming, Mark. She's been watching you. She's been waiting for you to remember. And now that you have, she's coming to take you back, and I won't let her. I looked at the rose in her hand, the single perfect rose. A rose for a funeral for the man I used to be. The man who had a life, a love, and a future. The man who had died in the car crash. The rose was the final clue. A final, cruel truth. It wasn't just a rose. It was a message from Clara. A message that said, I'm here, I'm waiting, I'm coming to take you back. I had to get to her first. I had to find her. But as I stood there, the blood from my hands staining the lavender walls, I realized the full, terrifying extent of Evelyn's plan. The gaslighting wasn't to keep me from her. It was to drive me to her. To make me so desperate, so broken, so willing to believe anything that when Clara came, I would believe her. I would run to her. And when I did, Evelyn's revenge would be complete. She wouldn't have to kill me. She would have to do something far more cruel. She would have to return me to Clara, a broken, empty shell of a man who had forgotten their love and betrayed her so deeply that he drove her to the edge of suicide. She would have to return me, not as the man Clara had loved, but as a monument to her own suffering, a walking, breathing testament to her own pain. The final, terrifying thought dropped into my mind, and I felt the last vestiges of my sanity crumble. The blood on my hands wasn't Evelyn's. It was my own, and the rose wasn't a gift. It was a note I had left for myself, a note I had left for the man I had become, a final, desperate attempt to reclaim the man I used to be, the man who had a life, a love, and a future, the man who was dead. I looked at the framed marriage certificate on the mantel, the photo of Evelyn and me on our honeymoon. The smiles were a lie, but it wasn't because of a hidden betrayal. It was because the man in the photo, the man who was smiling so perfectly, was not me. He was Evelyn, and I was the woman, the one who had betrayed her, the one who had betrayed my own love, the one who had tried to forget everything, the one who had built a cage of lies and forgotten the key. The blood on my hands wasn't Evelyn's. It was my own, because Evelyn wasn't my wife. She was my lover, and the woman I was trying to escape, the woman who was a ghost in my memories, was not Clara. It was my husband. The final, mind-bending truth, the final, terrifying twist, slammed into me with the force of a wrecking ball. The man I had betrayed was my husband. The woman I had loved, the woman I had tried to run away from, was my husband. The person who had been gaslighting me, manipulating me, was me. I was Evelyn, and I had a secret that wasn't a secret anymore. A secret that had been slowly, methodically tearing me apart from the inside. A secret that had been screaming to be let out. A secret that had finally been revealed. The blood on my hands was a final, desperate cry for help. A final, desperate attempt to reclaim the woman I was before I became a monster. The woman who had a life, a love, and a future. The woman who was dead. And as I looked at the mirror, I saw the face of my husband, his eyes wide, unseeing, a single rose clutched in his hand. He had been waiting for me to remember. He had been watching me from the other side of the glass. And now that I had remembered, I could finally go to him. I could finally be free. The final, horrifying truth. There was no amnesia. There was no Evelyn. There was only me. A woman who had betrayed the man she loved so deeply that she had created a new reality to escape the guilt. A reality where she was the victim, where he was the ghost, and where their love was a memory she had systematically, methodically erased. And the rose in his hand. The rose was the final clue. A message from the man I had killed. A message that said, you can't run from me. You can't run from the truth. And you can never escape the cage you built for yourself. The final, shocking revelation. The final, jaw-dropping twist. The man in the mirror was the one who had died in the car crash. And I was the one who had survived. I was the one who was now a ghost, haunting the house I had built, living in a reality I had created. A reality where I was a monster. A reality where I was the betrayer. A reality where I was alone. A reality where I had finally truly lost my mind.